What's up, you guys? It's your boy back again for another video. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, share the show with a friend. Definitely share it with your enemies. Make them watch it. Let's get right into this. I have to decide where I want to put the sump, and I got my fass system right here, and it looks like that's almost directly where the lowest point is on this tank, where it's sagging out. I think I'm gonna put it right here. It'll make it super easy, super simple to plumb in directly over to here, and then there's your filler neck right there. Got some plumbing up there to deal with. Looks like might be running through, the hose might be wearing through there. That would be this one, the return. So once I get this hole poked, I'll drain it into this bucket, and then I will focus on figuring out all of these hoses and wires. Well, no going back now. Ooh, laminar flow. Oh, Rock Auto and all these companies are cutting costs and not sending stickers or magnets anymore. Kudos to Evil Energy. They sent me a sticker in every single pack that I that I just opened. So, well, we're getting kind of full, but it's still draining. And just like that, we are done draining. So now we can drill the bigger hole and put that sump in. All right, so the sump will go on the bottom of the tank and run over to the fass, to the feed on the fass, and then the fass is going to run up to the engine, and then one of them is the return that goes back to the tank. So what I have the sump here. I bought a single out sump. They have an option to have two of these if you want the send and the return come into this, but mine goes from the fass up and around and to the, it goes back, it plumbs into the filler neck, which I don't know, it's weird to me. I don't know, I've never seen that before. But so all we need is the feed. This will come out here and run up to the fass, to the inlet on the fass, and then I will have this straight. I have two of these 45s. I may 45 it, but either a straight or a 45 going into the fass. And then I'm going to redo the connectors on the fass. I'm going to put one of these in, and then we'll run a new end on the fass all the way up to the engine. We'll be using this hose, and the connector on the engine we're going to leave the way it is. It's a 45 special high, whatever. It's fine. It's good the way it is. So we'll just shove this on there. It's a push connect. And then we'll run a new one of these for the return from the fass up to the tank. And I'll go underneath and show you. So this is your in right here. We're going to have a sump right here. That hose will come out there, wrap around, and then it'll go in right here. We will delete this and take off that, all that off that lift pump up there. You can't see it, it's up there, and we will cap it off. And then, so that is your in. This is your send out. This top one, this one goes all the way up there to the engine. We need to redo this hose anyway. It's all droopy and weird. And so we'll put a new connector here, and we'll put a new connector here. This is your return. Goes up and around and goes to the filler neck, which is weird. And right here it's rubbing, so that all needs to be replaced. I didn't know that was rubbing up there. I'm not sure that I have enough new hose to run this line, and the new line to here. So I may have to go buy some more before this project's done. But as it is right now, we're gonna take this off and this off, put a new hose on the top here. We'll take this off and cap that up there, and then plumb in the sump right here and put new filters on. You know, I'm gonna take this bed off eventually and replace it either with a flatbed or some utility bed or a dump bed. I'm kind of half tempted to just put a pause on this and take this bed off as it is right now. That'd make it way easier to get this on and do all this work. Also, I need to put a gooseneck on. It would be way easier to put the gooseneck on, and then it'd be prepped and ready to go to get that new bed on. So once again, mid-project, I'm thinking of changing my mind and doing something else in the middle of it. This is the problem with me and projects. I can't just start and then finish. I always got something I got to do. Whoa. All right, let that drain the rest of the way. I've only ever done one of these before, and it was a lot easier because this I took the tank out and it was sitting on sawhorses upside down. It was super easy. So all right, there's the float. Hopefully that doesn't affect it. Well, I'm a little covered in diesel now, but right, whoa. All right, start over. I'm a little covered in diesel now, but right in that opening on that hole is the float for the level sensor. I'm wondering if putting this in here is going to affect that. I may be stuck perpetually at like a quarter tank, but we'll find out. So, all right, installing these are not hard in any way, but it is hard when you're laying on your back in a puddle of diesel and you're still leaking some. So I had to put the camera down, but I'll put it up on screen what it looks like. You've seen it on my shelf or on my counter a couple times, countertop, workbench, whatever. There's a little cutout on the silver bit, and that will go into the hole, and then it allows that silver bit to go all the way into the hole, and then you can set it flat, and then you just lightly bring this part up and line this Allen up with it and start threading it in, and then you basically get it hand tight. And then I just took a little 1/4 inch impact and impacted it down, and it's pretty sturdy. There's an O-ring that sits on the top that'll press up against this, and then that silver and the bottom part here pinches it, and that O-ring will seal. Mine has this weird drain that was leaking, and I had to drive it farther in, but it's good now. But we won't know full leak situation until we get diesel back in this, and then we'll be able to tighten it if we have to. It's pretty tight as it is. This may leak. We may have to pull this out and seal it with some RTV or something, but this is on here with thread sealant. This is just sitting in here, and this is in here with a rubber. It's got a rubber washer that when it pinches it'll seal. So that's all tight and done. And yeah, move on to the next thing. I'll pull this off. I'm gonna plug this wire up here, not wire, hose. I'm gonna plug this off. Won't need this send anymore. That'll be plugged and done. We'll pull this off, and I may, well, let me back up here. I may 45 this off and then come down to here and 45 into this, I may 45 off of here and come just straight into here. Either way. Also with these, if you do need to clock it or whatever, you just loosen this up, you're able to clock it, tighten it back down. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. All right, to plug the original sending unit to fass hose, once I snip it off, I don't have any like plugs, but I do have a solution, and I'm gonna show you on this one. So basically, I have all these vacuum line caps, and which I've used for everything but vacuum lines. But anyway, so this is the hose end. I have a vacuum line cap that will fit almost perfectly, and because I'm a pack rat, I have tons of bolts left over from odd jobs. Well, I'm just going to shove that in all the way to the flange hits, and then I'll just put a pipe clamp or a hose clamp on it, and it should seal it. I don't see why it would leak. Then I won't have to worry about trying to like reach up into the top of that fuel tank, which is not easy. And it's pretty close to the bed, pretty close to the frame. It's just a tight fit, and I think this will solve that problem. It's already hanging down. I'll just be able to zip it tight right there and call it a day. So I'm trying to get this water separator off here, and well, instead of spinning the threads, it's just spinning the whole unit, the whole everything. I'm telling you, I've experienced the weirdest things the last few weeks working on this thing. I've never had that, the whole bung spin. That's so weird. Well, the color looks good coming out of there. So it looks like I got pretty good diesel in there. The filters are doing a good job. Kind of beat up though. Got some serious chunks out of it. They've been on there a while. Not very many miles, but they've been on there time-wise a while. All right, this is where we're at currently. I have cut that off. I just use the little wire cutters. Cut that off, plugged it. It worked excellently. And then I took that off. Just got done with that. But I didn't realize what time it was, and I have to go get ready for work. It is. I gotta leave. I gotta leave soon. So we gotta put a pause on this. It's gonna be a 2-day build. So next time you see me, I'll have different clothes on. I lied. I'm in the same clothes. Let's get to work.
I almost didn't make this video because I faced so many struggles doing this fuel system. Mostly my fault, but yeah, it was a struggle start to finish. These AN kits come in a bunch of different sizes. You can pick whatever meets your need, and I went with AN8 in this case, and they also come with all different kinds of ends you could use, and for the hose ends and for the connections on the hard pieces. And I went with the AN8, obviously, like I said, and I have NPT 1/2 inch here, the National Pipe Thread 1/2 inch on the fass, and that's also the same on the sump that I installed. These are super customizable. They have different degrees for the hose ends. You can get straight, you can get 45, 90, 180. Like, there's all sorts of types you can do. Same with the other ends. You can just have the straight ends on the hose and connect your angled pieces to whatever you're connecting to, the hard components. But in this case, I just went with a straight on the fass and a straight on the sump. Once you have your component ends figured out, then you got to figure out your hose and your hose ends. And I'm trying to determine which angle I wanted and where I put this sump lined up with the fass. It was not the most ideal angle, and the 45s I bought, I wasn't really satisfied with how they were working, but it is what it is. The sump's in, it's already done, so now I just gotta navigate around that little bit of a weird jog that it's gonna have. Alright, step 1, figure out component ends. Step 2, figure out hose ends. Step 3, grab your hose and sort of eyeball it, mock it up, see kind of sort of where you want it to go, and cut it to length. Now, as we can see, there's going to be some fun little curves in my hose to go from the fass to the sump, and I saw this online one time and I thought it was kind of interesting and I wanted to try it out on this. I've never done it, but basically you take a little piece of heat shrink and you put it over the hose, and then what you do is you obviously hit it with a heat gun till it's soft and malleable, and then you bend it to your desired angle and let it cool off, and it's supposed to stay at that angle. Like I've said, I've never done this before, so this is a trial for me. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, no big deal. Now, when doing projects like this, it is super important to make sure you have dead batteries, because it makes it so much more fun having to swap out batteries constantly because you didn't put them on the charger. Oh yeah, full power. This definitely takes a little bit of time. You want to go slow. You don't want to melt it. You don't want to burn it. Just take your time. Hit all around it. Once it's tight, then I like to go over it one more time just to make sure it's all warm. And then here I am bending it, trying to get the correct shape. And then in a flash of genius, I had an idea to super cool this by blowing some air compressor air on it. And it actually worked phenomenal. And just like that, check it out. It actually worked. I had my doubts going into it, but it worked. I'm surprised. So with most of these AN kits, the most common colors you can get are black or a shiny stainless steel. But there are other colors they offer. I've seen yellow, I've seen red, I've seen blue, I've seen some green. But to get the colored ones, you gotta pay, a little bit of a premium. I was thinking about going with one of the colored sets, but I got to looking at it and I realized it was just a sleeve over top of the hose. And instead of paying a premium, I decided just to make my own. So I hopped online and bought some braided wire loom, and this is the same stuff that I used previously on my custom cables that I made for the batteries. And if you haven't seen that video, hop on the channel, go back and watch the video. They turned out super nice. But I really like this braided wire loom, and I bought some that the ID of the loom measured bigger than the OD of the hose I was using. And unfortunately, that was the first of the many issues that I faced during this install, and they actually sent me way too small of wire loom, so I had to go back on. I had to reorder some in the right size, and the second time around they did give me the right stuff. So, but unfortunately, as you can see me struggling this whole time, it's big enough to go on the outside of the hose, but when you add that heat shrink to it, that was just a little too big, and it really had to push it on there a lot, and I kind of shredded the ends of it, but not a big deal. I just grabbed a pair of scissors and trimmed up the outside, and it ended up looking really nice, I think. And yeah, everyone should make them like this. It was cheap, it was easy, it was fast, and it looks really good. Once you got your hose cut to length and in the shape you want, then you got to grab your ends and got to press them on. They make a jig that goes in a benchtop vise that helps press it in. They have specific tools to do it too. There's all sorts of ways you can do it, but really you can just do it by hand. It's, as long as you push it in good enough, you won't leak. It was about here where I came up against another slight roadblock. The ends that I ordered are for AN specific hoses, and I have not AN hose in my hand. I'm using a push lock type regular fuel line and adding my own wire loom to the outside. It actually is a little bit too big for the ends that I got. I really tried to force this end on, and it ended up just shredding the aluminum threads, and it did not go on at all. It was just a little too big, so. But then I had the bright idea, maybe I could trim it down a little bit with the grinder and get it to fit. So I grabbed a little flappy disc and just mowed a little bit of the rubber off. Unfortunately, it still did not work. So, oh well. A big reason I'm doing this voiceover and another fail of this whole event is that they're redoing the road. And they were extra loud, and I just didn't want to fight with trying to record over top of them. So, yeah. So after fighting and failing to get the other hose to work, I gave up on that idea. And that's okay, because that leads me to this. That's right, I went online and bought the actual right hose to work with the ends I have purchased. And an added bonus is this is a full kit, so it came with some extra ends, so that's awesome. These braided AN lines just make everything look super nice. I really like them. And I got the PTFE lined style. It works better for diesel. And I noticed while I was admiring it that it seemed a little bit thinner than what I was expecting when I ordered it. So I decided to grab my digital calipers and start taking some measurements and compare them to what the sizes are supposed to be. See what in the world is going on. I was thinking similar to the wire loom incident. Maybe they had just sent me a little bit thinner than what I had ordered and the wrong size, so I'm comparing it to the ends that it came with, but the measurements all checked out. And luckily I just so happened to have a little bit of AN10 sitting in my shelves for a different project that you'll see in the future. So I decided to compare the measurements on that to what I was getting on the AN8 hose to see if everything checked out the way it was supposed to. It's about right here where I realized the hoses were correct. It was me that had made another mistake. You see, what happened was this whole fueling upgrade idea started about 6 months prior to this point, but it wasn't for the truck. I initially started thinking about all this and getting these AN hoses for my Audi that I was working on at the time, which is still in the background waiting to be worked on. And obviously the Audi is a smaller vehicle, smaller engine, smaller everything, so it needs smaller fuel line. And for some reason it just slipped my mind of what the size was that I actually needed for the truck. So once again, we're back to square one because I had made a mistake. But at least the good news is I have plenty of ends and plenty of fuel line for when I actually get around to working on the Audi and upgrading all of the fueling. As I was sorting through all the hose ends and the barb fittings and everything that I had, I suddenly had an epiphany. I had a couple plastic push lock ends mixed in with all of them, and I was thinking maybe it would connect to the AN ends that I had, and that would work with that little rubber chunk of hose that I had created, and maybe, just maybe, get me by while I'm waiting for the right parts to come in. It honestly turned out way better than I expected. I really like the way that wire loom looks on the outside. I just wish it would have worked with the AN fittings, but push locks, they work just fine. Now all that was left to do was to do a little bit of house cleaning, clean up some of that spilled diesel, and get the filters back on, and then it would be all ready to drive, and it would get me by until I could figure out what I wanted to do going forward. Like I said earlier, I almost didn't make this video just because I was so frustrated with all the mistakes I was making and just the random things that was happening. But then I want this channel to be raw and real, and I don't want it to be fake polished like most of the YouTube channels you see, where nothing goes wrong, everything's perfect, everything fits all the time. That's not what this channel's about. That's not how my projects go. So I decided to make the video anyway, showing all the problems and mistakes, and I didn't even show all of them. There was a lot more. I skipped through a bunch of them. But anyway, I learned a lot of lessons from these mistakes, and they all led to this. Hey, thanks for watching. This was a little bit longer. Like I said, I wasn't going to do it at all, but then I decided to just pack it all into one and bite the bullet and do it. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell someone. And stay tuned for the upcoming videos where we get to see me make more mistakes installing and building and creating things. I appreciate all of you guys. You guys are awesome. Peace out.